Okay, so we're gonna start with the basics with like just using a reflector. So it's not even like off-camera lighting. It's just manipulating the light that you already have available to you. So this is an example of using a reflector. The one on the left is using nothing, and then the one on the right is just adding a reflector to it. This is another example of just so there's no off-camera light. You're just bouncing the sun directly, and then the reflector they're using like a silver. Because usually the reflectors, they have different, like, so they have one side that's white, one side that's silver, and one side that's like gold, and then another side that's shoot through, so you can like diffuse the sun. Here's another, this one isn't a reflector. What this one is a diffuser. So this one is, instead of actually reflecting light off the reflector, they're just sticking the white shoot through diffuser, which is just a big, pretty much white piece of fabric, and you're creating shade for the person. This one looks like a reflector. That's another one with a reflector. And that's another one with a reflector.
Where are they placing it?
So, usually they're like just off to the side like this. So the disadvantages of a reflector is that you usually have to have someone holding it. Or you can get a stand for it, but then you're always adjusting it. They do make... Usually someone's holding it because if they move it all, or if you move it all, then you need to, and it's really, really bright in their face. So a lot of times you move it away, and then you go, okay, ready, we're going to take a picture, and then they put it in their face because it's super bright. And then they take a bunch of pictures, and then the person holding it moves it away again. So the nice thing is it's free light. It's really cheap to buy a reflector. It doesn't take that much, even on a cloudy day. If you hold a reflector up to you, up to someone's face, it will fill in shadows and give the subject more depth. You can even have the subject hold it if you're just doing a headshot. And that gold one is for like if it's closer to sunset, the light is a lot warmer. So you would need like a gold will give them a lot warmer feel. That one right there is a diffuser. So that one is shoot through, so it's just like a white fabric, and the sun's behind the tree, and it would have came in and hit their head. So all she's doing is blocking the sun to kind of create a shadow. That's why photographers really like it when it's a nice cloudy day, because you can shoot at any time of the day, and it's like perfect. Instead of like at noon, you got the bags under the eyes and everything. Okay, so this is an example of both a reflector and a diffuser. So this is actually called a sun swatter, and it's meant for, because it looks like a fly swatter. But these are actually pretty expensive. You can actually buy some knockoff brand ones for like $100. This one that they're using is like, I think, $500. But that's looks like the same picture. Okay, so then they also make ones that are triangular shaped with a handle. And the advantage of using that is the photographer themselves can hold it. In this picture, oh, someone's AT&T phone or something's the microphone. This one, he's diffusing the light with the top one, and then he's bouncing light with the bottom one. And it doesn't necessarily even, the sun doesn't even have to be coming from, going into the reflector. It can just pick up light that's around the area. So you can see in this example, the sun's way over here, like over to the right, or like behind this guy. So even though the sun's not over here to bounce off this thing, it's still picking up enough light to I mean, it makes a difference. This is an example of a stand that can hold it. The disadvantage is, again, like, it's always going to be blinding them. And it's, someone's phone is messing up that thing. But I think it's like just maybe the phone's right next to it. Yeah, it might, yeah. Okay. So these are fine for like studios and stuff, but if you were actually going to take them out on a location shoot, it'd be kind of hard because like you're moving around a lot too. Also, you'd probably have to put a sandbag on this, like over here, just to hold down the weight, because this might end up tipping over. And these ones that are triangular shaped come in all different sizes. We use this middle one, and it folds up like in this really small pack. And then they have covers that go on them. And what's nice about this brand is they have a cover that is lines that are silver and gold. Like every other line is silver and gold, so it's not too cool and it's not too warm, but it kind of mixes it just enough. I usually use that one the most. There's another example of where they would be holding it for your question earlier of where they're holding it. So it's usually, because the sun's usually up above, they're just bouncing it. And most of the time when the sun's harsh, you're going to get a lot of shadows underneath the chin. So they're usually bouncing the light underneath them to kind of fill in the shadows, so the shadows aren't too dark. And there's another example of when you would use both a diffuser and a reflector. And then there's an example of the photographer actually holding it. So you can still hold it yourself and shoot. You don't even need like a tripod. You can just hold it in one hand and then your camera's in the other hand. I've done that before. Like that too. Okay, and then...
It's not like a cat purring. It's me. Is it your phone?
No, someone's... Is it your phone?
Yeah, it's your phone.
Yeah.
So I could hear it going off.
Is that a cat?
It does sound like a cat.
Okay, so another way you can do stuff is with light. So if you bought a flash and you stuck it on your camera, or even if you used your pop-up flash, a lot of times it's going to look like this, where it's like really harsh shadows. And they make these things that you can stick on top of your flash that diffuse the light. So instead of the light being really harsh coming in one direction, it would hit this thing and the light would shoot in all different directions. They even have a cap on the top of this that you can remove if you're in an area with low ceilings. Because a lot of times if you have one of these flashes, you can just point it straight up and bounce it off the ceiling, and the entire ceiling becomes your light source. But then that means all your available light's coming straight down from the ceiling. The advantage of using one of these is as soon as it hits this, it's like a white Tupperware thing. It actually folds up and you can stick it in your bag. As soon as it hits this, the whole entire thing glows and it shoots light in all directions. So not only is it going to go straight up, but it's also going to go towards the subject's eyes. And then it'll also give you a nice catch light in their eye, which is the reflection of your light in their eye, which usually ends up looking pretty good in a photo. This one is if you don't... Yeah.
Is there, sorry, going back to the reflector, is there a difference between using like a circle or an oval?
No.
Like those triangle ones?
No, the triangle ones are just for holding it yourself.
Yeah.
The circle
And they also
ones...
have, like oval and circle.
I think the oval ones are to get it bigger. Like if you're trying to reflect light on an entire subject's body from head to toe.
Oh, okay.
But the only reason they're normally a circle is because it's easier to fold up. The other ones are a lot trickier to fold up.
So like on Amazon, there's one for like $16.99, one for $10.99. Like, is that like a normal price, or
Yeah.
is that gonna fall apart?
No, those will be fine. The ones that are the triangle ones are obviously a lot more expensive. So
Yeah.
a reflector.
Oh, light reflector. Oh, I did light diffuser.
So like yeah, if you just search for reflector, so this right here is $16.99 and it's a 43-inch one, which is a pretty decent size, and it comes with all the different colored fabrics. So if you take off all the fabrics, it's a shoot through, and then on one side is silver and black, and then on the other side it's white and gold. So with one device,
What would the black be for?
black is for shielding light. So if you're getting light that is hitting your lens, you would use it to block light coming in from the lens, or if light's hitting, or if you have a very even light on your subject and you want it to be more three-dimensional, you could hold up the black to block light coming from the left or right.
If you wanted to use it as a white reflector, would you put the black on the back so that it wouldn't be as... It wouldn't be acting as a diffuser, as more of a reflector?
No, it won't really reflect the black at all. It'll just absorb the light.
No, what I'm saying is if you wanted to use a white reflector.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be more opaque.
Right, so there's this one right here.
Yeah.
So it's...
Because if it didn't have anything behind the white,
Yeah, so...
would it reflect as well? Or could you use the... Would you use the black to back it? So that
No, yeah. So if you use this one right here, that is translucent. So that's
Yeah.
not really going to reflect
That's what I'm saying.
out. So you would use the black one, and then the other side is...
Yeah, is white, right?
Well, yeah, I think the other side of black is silver, and the other side of gold, it's like a light gray. So if you're just trying to bounce soft light onto your subject, you would use the gray. If you're if it's really, really dark, like it's really cloudy, and you don't have enough light, and you're using this gray and it's not really lighting up your subject, then you would use the silver, which is going to reflect a lot more light than the gray would. And then if it's warm, if you need a warm light, then you would use the gold. But that's why I kind of liked, mine has one that is half silver, half gold, and it gives off a warmer feel than the silver, but not as warm as the other one.
Does it mix the
It's like every other
evenly?
line. It's
Oh,
like
it's every other line?
Yeah, it's like a little tiny thin line, and every other line is silver than gold, then silver than gold. And yeah, they have, you know, this one is 24 by 36, so like this one looks pretty. No, that one's 24 by 36 also. So they have big. Okay, so then they also have things like this. This is obviously a higher name brand. Oh, this is like a kit. It comes with everything. But they also have these tri ones. So if you add to the search tri reflector, then you'll find like these things. And that's for, yeah, so there's that one that has white and gold.
Is this one yours?
Here's those. So there's like silver and gold.
Oh.
And then that one is silver and white.
Oh.
So it really gives you.
Sometimes this
It's
is
too-
way too powerful.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And then
Silver
there's
and
also
white.
black, and then
silver
there's,
and white helps to diffuse it a little bit more.
and then
Helps it
there's,
not be as strong.
Not as strong.
and then on the
It's
back
nicer.
side of this one,
And then the yellow
There's
and
nothing.
white too.
Oh.
Just-
a
just
tiny
enough
bit of
warmth, but not, like, super warm.
overpowering
Yeah.
with
yeah.
the
So then
gold.
there's a white too. So this one came with quite a bit of different ones. And then this one you can just hold.
Yeah.
And then they even have a mount, which I have a picture of, where you can. Oh, so real quickly, the advantage of this is if you were doing it in the studio, your light would bounce off both underneath them, and it would, like right here, it would bounce off on the right side of them, and then it would bounce off on the left side of them too.
Yeah, so just buy like a billion stands and a billion reflectors.
Let me see if I can find that.
I have a little softbox. Explain what I said before to go on the website.
Lastolite.
It takes a few times.
Okay, so there's also this right here, which you can buy an adapter that holds a flash. So if you're by yourself, you can set this up on a light stand, stick a flash on it, and you could shoot it through it with the white diffuser, or you could bounce it off. So that one's kind of nice because then you're not limited to the sun. It's kind of like using like a light stand with an umbrella. But the nice thing about this is if the wind hits it, it just folds over. It doesn't knock over your stand. Outdoors, when you have like an umbrella, the wind will catch it and it'll just like knock down all your equipment. So usually outdoors, you're going to want to use like a softbox, which then would make the light go around the light, whereas an umbrella, it would just pick it up and your stuff would fall over. With this one, it'll literally just like bend the thing over.
Do you want it passed around?
You can if you want, yeah.
I want it or you want
No, I don't care. If anyone wants to see it, you can come grab it or whatever. Okay, so if you don't buy a flash, a lot of cameras have the pop-up flash, and then this thing is called like a Gary Fong puffer, and it just attaches to your hot shoe. So it's like a piece of plastic, and this will just help diffuse. So this is the difference between using that and not using it. So you can see that there's a lot more harsh shadows on the wall, and just all the shadows everywhere are just a lot harsher than this one. So it's just a way to help lightly diffuse your on-camera flash. And then there's another example of with and without. Obviously that one's overexposed, but you can see the really harsh shadows on the wall. And then there's another one. So this one's just the available light. This one is the pop-up flash, which you can see is really harsh and very flash looking. And then this one just gives it more 3-dimension. And you can see over here on like the sun is really bright in these spots, and it's not really hitting over here, whereas this one, it kind of evens out the light more, but it still gives, and you can see like underneath her chin, it's really dark here, whereas over here, the flash helped fill it. Okay, so then this one right here is, what do they call that one? Jamie? What do they call that one? That's just the Gary Fong.
Just like the
Gary Fong diffuser.
I think it's like a light sphere or something like that.
Yeah.
So, so there's an example of this one, and that one, obviously the flashes that you can stick on top of your camera are a lot more powerful than the one that just pops up. So you can light like a bigger group, and it'll light up like more of the wall. And because it's a bigger light source, like it's physically a bigger object that it's shooting through, you're going to get a softer light. So the bigger your light source, the softer your light's going to be. And we'll go through how all that works later. And there's another example of using one of those diffusers just with the pop-up flash. And you can see, like, if you use the built-in flash on your camera, your pictures are going to come out really flashy looking like this. And that's why you would want to use some type of, like, diffuser to even out the light.
That's almost even a good example of using your direct flash. It usually looks a lot worse.
And then this is other... So they also have a lot of other modifiers that you can buy for flashes that you can, like... cause the light to go into a much... Let me see if I have that one somewhere. I don't know where that picture went. Okay, so, and this is just showing, so this is a direct flash right here, where she looks very cool, because the light in this room is very warm. So they're mixing the light that's already available in the room with their flash, and your flash is a very cool light. It's like 12 o'clock noon light, so it's not cool, which is more blue, and it's not warm, which is more like sunsetty and orange. So because this one is direct flash hitting the subject, it looks very blue. She does not look like the correct color compared to the background. Whereas this one is a light sphere, and what's happening is because the light is now being thrown everywhere, including the ceiling and the walls, it then, once it hits the wall, if the wall is tan, it will bounce back a tan color. So that's why she looks a lot warmer and properly colored in that one. That's why you don't want to also bounce light off of like a red wall or a green wall. It's going to make your subject look whatever color you bounce the light off of. And then this is more dramatic lighting when you like are actually putting on things on the flash to make the light go in one direction. Okay, so then there's a problem with... So a pop-up flash is going to look like, I mean the flash that you can attach to the top of your camera is going to look like this, and it's fine for landscape pictures. But if you take portrait pictures, now your flash is coming to the right. So the problem with that, so one way to quickly fix it is you can actually turn it up so it bounces off the ceiling. But that means all your light's going to be coming, which is usually really good. But if you're in a building that's like very high ceilings, it's not really going to work. So they make these things called like flash brackets, and a lot of wedding photographers use these because what happens is in landscape mode your flash is above their camera, and then when you turn your camera sideways to do a portrait, it's still above the camera. And then they have all different kinds of those. Those are anywhere from $10 to $15 all the way up to $100, depending on how nice of, you know, like this one is a very easy to use one. In fact, there's a video of how fast it is to move it. I think you just click a button and it like rotates. So those are, you know, obviously...
Does it happen to swivel your flash?
Yeah. So you have to kind of be careful with like how much accessories you got. Otherwise you might... You know, which that might end up looking really cool, but it's... You also have to keep in mind...
I'll be smothered.
If you
Right.
wanted to turn it...
Yeah, you have to keep in mind like how much equipment... Like if you had to set that down, you're going to have a problem setting it down. And a lot of times you do, and that's why usually when you're shooting a wedding, you want some type of hook on your camera so you can like hook your camera to your belt, because there's a lot of times you need two hands, and we'll get into like all that gear later too. Okay, so that's what a flash bracket is. So like this one right here is probably like $100, and this one's probably $20. And all it is like an L bracket that can adjust, and then you would hook up your flash to like a coiled cord like this. So that way it's just sending the signal from your camera directly to the flash, so you can move it back and forth without losing the connection. Okay, so not only are reflectors good for the sun, but you can also use reflectors with speed lights and your off-camera lighting. So instead of buying 2 flashes, you might have a setup where you have 1 light, but you just need a little bit more light hitting your subject to fill in the shadows, and you could use a reflector on one side and then a light on the other side. This is an example of a 2-light setup with a reflector. So this one is her backlight, which is going to light up and give her a rim light, or it separates her from the background. This one is the main key light. So whichever light is your brightest light, your main light source is called your key light. And then this would be like a hair light or a rim light. It's the one in the back. And then this would be the fill light. So the fill light is usually about 2/3 to half the brightness of your key light, and then the rim light doesn't really matter, like whatever you think looks good. And then there's an example of that try one. So it's 1 light source, it's coming down, and then when it hits this, it's filling all edges of her face. So that's another nice setup. Okay, so now here's one where they're using 2 flashes and they're just resting this against the tripod. So there's 1 light sitting on the, and you don't even need a stand. He's just setting it on the floor, and all that's doing is rimming the back of her hair. And then this one, he's setting it on the floor, and it's hitting this, and he just angled it to hit her. So there's no stands. There's, you don't have to like have another person helping you hold stuff, and it's not bright in her face because you're not bouncing the sun off of her. It's only gonna be bright in her face when you take the picture. And then there's that example of that one where you can attach it to the thing. Okay, now this is an example of a last year we did assignments and stuff where this is 1 light. So if I would have turned off my 1 light source, this entire picture would have been black. And I did it with all these reflectors. So this is my 1 light source. It's hitting this mirror in the background, bouncing off the mirror, and then hitting this reflector and this reflector, and it was getting that whole thing. So that's 1 light. So even if you only have 1 light, you can get those $15 reflectors and still get really creative pictures out of it. And this is an example of just an overhead light and what a fill is actually doing. So you can see the difference between what the main light is doing and what the fill is doing with this. And it just helps fill the really dark parts of the shadows. Okay, so now these are examples of single light. All these pictures in this folder are all 1 light, and it's just for like a wedding shoot. So this is all backlit, trying to get like a silhouette, but because it's shooting through the veil, it's wrapping light around the subject, so you can still see more of the front of the dress too. And then that again is just sticking a light behind the dress and just like shooting it. And because her dress is becoming the light source, it then wraps around her feet and the floor in front of it. And this one, again, is just shooting directly into the veil, and it just lights up everything, and it gives it a very dramatic... And because the light source is really close to the subject, you can see by the time it gets up to the head, it's almost black. So the closer your light source is to the subject, the faster it will disappear. Because light disappears like twice as much every time you double the distance. So between 1 foot and 2 foot, you've already lost half your light.
What's the direction of light in that? Is it bright at her face, or is
it's behind her shooting? Probably. Do you remember that one, Shanda? I don't remember where we did that one.
I think that was in her room. So she just had the veil, and then the light was just coming from the side, which is why it was too blown out right by her face, is because it was just kind of like right there.
Yeah, and I actually like that look.
And
see,
so what was the light source? Was it
just my
a
speed
flash?
light. Yeah.
So if you'd have angled it just a little more, maybe this way, you would have
Or
got
even
more.
pulling it away from her, probably a little bit
given you more
farther,
detail.
would have given, because it was totally blown out. I tried to bring it back, part of her face, and it was just blown out. So
I actually like it like that.
yeah, I mean it looks pretty still.
And there's another example. This one actually does look like we're using 2 lights, though. So we have one in the background to light up the entire veil, and then we have another light, photographer right. So right to the right of the photographer, it's probably in like a softbox, up high at a 45-degree angle shooting down. And you can tell that by reverse engineering the shadows. So you can always tell what kind of lights people are using based on the shadows. So because this right here is creating a shadow right here, then you know that our light source is like over here. And then the back, we have another one. So the one that's in the front, the key light, that's the one where you're going to use like a diffuser. A diffuser is the thing to like you know, like an umbrella or a softbox, and you're going to shoot through something to make it a nice pretty light. Your backlight is just to get the rim around the edge of the subject, and that one I usually always do bare. So there's nothing attached to the light. It's literally just sitting on a stand pointing right at the subject.
I thought you had a gun.
Okay, now this is an example of going from one light to two lights. So these are all two light sources. So there's one on the left and one on the right, and they're both using these portable softboxes. The advantages of these softboxes versus other softboxes is these ones just pop up and they attach to flashes instead of a lot of the other softboxes are kind of like tents where they have like tent poles, and so many people will set them up and they're such a pain to set up and put down that you usually end up keeping them set up because they're just too difficult. So I prefer umbrellas, but in a situation like this, we don't want the wind to catch the umbrella and it'll just knock it over. So softboxes are better for outdoors, mainly because of the wind aspect. And then these ones are just like 24-inch softboxes that a flash can attach to. So and you can see from on here too that, so yeah, so we're just doing one light on the right and one on the left, and then the rest is mixed with the sun. And then this again, so on this one, we have our light source is on the left. Our main key light is on the left, and it's using a really bright light with a 60-inch white shoot-through umbrella. So the white shoot-through umbrella means the light is behind the umbrella, and I'm actually sending the light through the umbrella and then onto the subject. It's not bouncing off the umbrella. It's actually going through it. So it diffuses the light. You do lose a lot more power that way because you're actually losing all the light that couldn't get through it. But then it gives a really nice soft feel. And then on the edges, you can see there's just another light over here with nothing on it. It's just shooting the back of them. And then that creates your rim light. And that's another example. So this one, the main light is like right here, and the background light is just right over here. Same thing, this one is on the right, the main light, and then another light, and you can see it all from here. And the only reason you want to use a rim light is because otherwise they would just blend into the background. So like right here, you see how her hair is separated, whereas hers isn't. So the rim light didn't hit right here, but it did hit right here. And you can see like the edge of her skin. Otherwise, they just kind of blend into the background. Another example, this one, the key light's on the left and the rim light's on the back. And these are all just two light setups. Pretty easy to do. And two lights, you can do quite a bit of different things with them. There's another one, the main one on the right and the key and the fill light on the left. And you can see just the edge of the dress, the edge of the leg, the edge of the arm, and then in the hair. And like on her cheek right here too. And the same thing with this one, it's hitting right here, and it's hitting his whole back. And this one, the main light's on the left, and then the key light, or the spotlight's on the back. And then this one, I have now this one's a different situation, because normally you want to cross light your lighting, which means if you put your key light, like your main light, let's say to the left, or to the right of you, and then there's your subject, you would put the rim light in line with the subject and the key light. So both of your light sources are actually pointing towards each other. So you light up half your subject from one angle, and then the opposite angle is being lit up by that background. So if you drew a line from your light to your subject to the other light, it's a straight line. And that's called cross lighting. This one, because the trees are in the ray, I have my main light on the left of me, and then I have the rim light to the left of the back of her. So you can see then it creates a lot more shadows like over here. And this is just outdoors, and you can see I adjusted my settings so the background's not dark. I just lit her up to give her more three-dimensional look. And that's the same. Okay, so this is using one light, and my rim light is the sun. So with this one, because usually what you're doing with the rim light is you're emulating the sun. And that's one of the times that you would want to use a pop-up flash. Usually you would never use a pop-up flash. But in situations where if you have a really, really bright sun, you would want to turn your subject around so the sun is towards the back of them. So the sun is creating all these leaves right here to glow, they're creating all this to glow, and then it's creating the back of her hair to glow and the back of her body, and then my light is over here and just lighting up like, you know, these angles. And you can see about the angle. So this right here is creating a shadow right here. So if you follow that line, my light's like up here. And it's using just a softbox, another one of those 24-inch softboxes. This is, again, another 2-light setup. So main one on the right, and then the rim light on the back, and you can see it in her arm and her hair. That's another one, just in the arm you can see it. And it just helps separate. You can see it a little bit in the hair, and you can see it on his forehead. And then sometimes you can make it so the light actually hits your lens, and it'll give you more lens flare. So in this situation, it's actually creating like lens flare right here. And then there's an example with no lens flare, and then there's one with lens flare. So sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't want it, just depending on what style you're going for. Okay, so now this is an example of 3 lights. So we have a light over here hitting this side, which is creating all of these edges. We have one light over here, which is creating a rim light on these back ones, and then we have a light above them, which is lighting up like all this stuff down here. And then you remove the lights in Photoshop. And to remove the lights, you would take a picture with no one in it, so that way you can like just mask out the background. So it's actually pretty easy to do that as long as you get a picture with no one in it.
Oh, and probably a tripod if you're going to do that.
Oh yeah, if you're doing that, you have to use a tripod if you're planning on making them move.
Just saying. You'll save yourself.
Okay, so then in a wedding, a lot of people struggle to find a good method to lighting weddings. And this is one of Janice's examples. What she's doing is she has a light in the background, and then she also has a light on top of her camera. So this is one light coming from the camera, but then she's also wirelessly triggering a light that's in the background. And that gives her the rim light, and then it gives her the fill from the camera directly on top of the flash. And there's a bunch of different ways to do that. And then you can also make it so the light is seen, and then it gives you the really big sun flare, which is really nice. So that one is, again, a light coming from her camera, and then a light coming from the background. In this example, we had 4 lights set up, and all we did was we stuck one light in each corner, and they were all bare lights. And so that way we could move around freely, and no matter what, they're getting hit by a light. And then both of us are triggering the light. So we had 2 photographers, and we both had a trigger, and we're both wirelessly triggering the lights. And no matter where we go, the light's always going to be hitting them. So you're always getting backlight, you're always getting fill light, you're getting lights from the side. And that's one of my favorite lighting setups because you don't ever have to worry about the lights. You just kind of run around and take pictures. And then if you want to try to get like a nice silhouette-y one like this, you can just step to the side so that way the light's behind them. Okay, so then in order to get your flash off the camera, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. Some are better than others, but this is probably one of the easiest and cheapest ways. And what this does is you would attach this to your camera, and then you would attach your flash to this one. So the cool thing about this one is because there's also a hot shoe. So the difference between the term hot shoe and cold shoe, hot shoe means there's electronic connections. A cold shoe just means it's the same shape, but there's no electronic connections. It's just a way to attach your flash to something to mount it.
Can I stop? Are you recording yourself?
Yeah?
Oh, you are recording yourself? Oh. I bought one of those and it didn't work.
What didn't work about it?
It would only let me either use, I had my transmitter on top of my camera,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to choose whether I wanted to use that hot shoe or that hot shoe.
Oh, so it didn't send it to both?
The one I bought. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But, so I ended up doing 2, like, receivers. One on, so I still bought that bar thing that goes around, but my upper one has a receiver and a transmitter here, and then a receiver on the other one.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
So
sorry.
that's interesting. I didn't know that. So she was saying she hooked up this into her, like this into her camera, and then she put a transmitter on here, and then she put her flash here. And we were hoping that the flash would go off and the transmitter, but apparently there was like a switch on this, and you had to tell it either use this transmitter or use this one. I was just trying to see if this was an easy way to use two lights, wired two lights. Because usually once you go from one light to two lights, you kind of have to go wireless, and that all of a sudden gets in a much bigger market. You now have wireless transmitters and receivers you have to buy and everything. And something like this is like $14. So it's not very expensive. And you can buy flashes on eBay for like $39. They're just like plain flashes that just have a manual setting, and they might not last as long as like a Canon or a Nikon flash. So here is an example. So this one does work like that, but it's probably using their branded trigger. So this is what we were trying to do with Crystal's setup, but she wasn't able to get it to work with the one that she bought. But with this company, it looks like they have a receiver and a transmitter. So you could have this one on your flash bracket, and then this one on a light stand behind you. And then, so you're using both wired and wireless technology together. And here's another example of like 2 of these adapters plus a cord is $37. Or you could buy the coiled cords, which are already all fixed. And that one was like $15. But depending on how your setup is, there are cheap ways to get your flash off the camera. There's an example of when you would use that coiled cord, because if you attached your flash to the flash bracket, it still has to be connected to your camera. So you can buy these coiled cords that just do this. That way when you move these left and right, it doesn't like tug on the cord. Or you could even just hold it to the side like that. And that's another thing I've done too, is I was at another wedding where I had a whole bunch of lights lighting up the entire room, and all my lights were facing the ceiling, and one in each corner, so it just lit up the whole room. But then everyone's chins, underneath their chins, were really dark. So I just had a light hooked to my belt with one of those Gary Fong diffusers, and every time I would take my picture, it would just fill from my body. It would just go, so that way I didn't have a light stand. I didn't have to like hold it. And because I had the Gary Fong, it didn't matter where I pointed because the light would go everywhere from underneath my camera, and it would just help fill all those shadows. Okay, so Canon, their original flashes didn't have radio waves built into them. They had infrared. And when you try to communicate wirelessly with infrared, it's kind of like how your remote control sometimes doesn't work on your TV and you have to sit there and point it towards the wall and bounce it off. Infrared's really bad, especially if the sun's out. So this last year, they finally came out with a whole new flash line that has radio wave transmitters and receivers built into the flash. But you can see these are $500 a piece, which is crazy. So this company out in China, this company, I don't even know how to pronounce it, but if you Google it on eBay, if you just search for like YN and then flash, you'll see a whole bunch of different flashes. So this is their version of this flash, and it works with the Canon flashes. This flash can trigger their flash. Their flash can trigger a Canon flash, but it's like $150 to $170. And I actually found a deal where if I bought them in bulk, I was able to get these for like $100 a piece. So if you guys, I just bought 10 of them, and I'm waiting for them to come. So if anyone wants to buy one, I bought them for the purpose of selling them to you guys. And if you don't want them, I'm just going to turn around on eBay and sell them for $150. Because I don't need them, but I know Janice was going to buy 2 because with her setup, so now you don't have to worry about wireless transmitters at all because the flashes talk to each other. So you can stick one on top of your camera as your main key light source, and then you stick another one on a light stand. And then another way to do it is a lot of flashes, especially the aftermarket flashes, they have a mode called S1 and S2, and that's slave mode. And that means it'll go off when it sees other light. So the way she was doing it before was her flash would go off on top of her camera, and then the flash in the background would see that light and go off at the exact same time. The disadvantage is it's not always going to go off, because sometimes it won't see it. You're maybe facing the wrong way. Or if someone else at the wedding is taking pictures with their flash, it's going to be triggering your... So you're going to be wasting your batteries on their flash. And with these things, recycle time is kind of a big deal. Like, the more you use this flash, especially if the power level is at full, which usually you'd want to probably stay at half, you'll get twice as much battery power. you know, if you are going to go to a wedding or something, you need to make sure you bring backup batteries. On the so once I get these, I'll test them all out, see how they work, make sure that they're good, and then if anyone's interested in buying them, they're like $100 a piece.
But now those don't act as a slave.
Seeing
the light, is it a radio?
No, you can.
It transmits.
These ones both have the slave trigger built in, an optical slave, so you can set it to trigger with any light source, or you can set it to trigger only when this one tells it to, and it's radio wave like a radio popper. So the nice thing is you don't have to buy third-party products,
and they don't have to be like facing each other.
Right,
to
exactly,
get the...
because normally infrared they have to face each other.
That's awesome.
Whereas this one you could put inside of the soft, and that's another problem with the infrared, is if you have one in a softbox, there's no way it's going to see the infrared signal. So with radio waves, it doesn't matter. It could even be behind a subject or behind a planter. Sometimes I'll stick lights like in the planters, so I can get like light shooting up the planters. Okay, so if you wanted to go with another method of wireless transmitters that aren't built into these flashes, because now if you ever bought Alien Bees, and Alien Bees are like these things, for like studio lights, these plug into the wall, you wouldn't be able to use like these lights to trigger them, because these lights talk to these lights only. So these lights are meant for talking to the same type of light. So you'd have to buy all your lights the same. The advantage of using a third-party trigger like this is these work with anything. So on this one, you can plug a light directly into here and it can go off, or there's a cord on the back that you can plug a cord into it's like a headphone cord that you can plug directly into like your studio light, which would plug into like this port right here. So this is their Nano series. They're $50 a piece. This is and we all use radio poppers here. So when you guys were like here doing all the different stations and we were using lights, we were giving you like one of these like transmitters to stick on your camera, and it was triggering our lights. And there's all these different channels, so you can have a whole bunch of different lighting setups, and you could even set up at a wedding 2 different lighting setups and just switch your channel based on which one you were currently using. So this is their cheaper series. It's $50 for the transmitter, $50 for the receiver. But there's no way to control. In fact, most transmitters are like this. All it does is send a signal from this to this, and that's all. So the light that's attached to this goes off. If you want to make your light brighter or darker, you would have to go walk over to the flash, adjust the setting, and then come back and take a picture. So they started making ones like this, and these are the ones that we all use. These ones have a dial, so I can actually set 4 different groups of lights, and then this is the receiver. So each light would have one of these plugged into it, and then this goes on top of my camera, and right from my camera I have the ability to make one light brighter, one light darker. I can shut off a light, I could turn off multiple lights, I could even adjust all of these keeping the same ratio. So you can see that this one's 9, 5, 4.3, and 2.3. There's a dial on the side where if all of them were highlighted, you could adjust it and they would all either go up and down, keeping the same ratio, which is a new feature that they just added. It's just really nice. But these are $129 a piece. But the advantage of going with a company like this is its reliability. If you go on, and they go like 1,600 feet, so you can like, there's no obstructions. It doesn't matter if you're shooting on the other side of a wall because it's using the radio waves instead of other signals. And the advantage of using these ones is if you have a Canon branded flash or a Nikon branded flash, then you can control the power of the flash through this. And they also work with Alien Bees, which means you can control how bright the Alien Bee is with these dials. So usually the Canon branded flashes and the Nikon branded flashes and Alien Bees are the most popular. And that's why they made a trigger to trigger your speed light that attaches to a camera and the third party like flashes like this. So this company is Alien Bees, and they're probably the best light for the cheapest amount of money. This is a 400, so it's giving off 160 watt seconds of power, and it's $224. This one's a little bit brighter. It's twice as bright, and it's $279. And then this one's twice as bright as the last one, and it's $359. And I use these ones, and Jamie uses these ones. But one thing that's nice about hers is hers can go darker. So hers can put off less light than mine at the lowest setting. And the advantage of putting off less light is if you had a lens that was like a 2.8, you'd be able to get a nice blurry background with using studio lights. When I have 4 lights set up, even at my lowest power, I have to be at like f8. I can't go any lower than f8, even if I wanted. I would have to buy like a diffuser, like one of those like they're like black pieces of plastic that you would stick over your light to kill the light coming out of the thing. So I could buy those to make them darker. But it is kind of nice being in a situation where you could have this. They also have one light that goes from 2 watts all the way to 640 watts built into one light, but it's like $500. That's their Einstein, and it's awesome. Okay, so this was the picture I was looking for before.
The Einstein curve will go from like 2 watts all the way up to big ones.
Yeah, so
How much were those?
that's 500. So
Those would be awesome.
and then they sell
Those would be awesome.
the trigger for this. The
Yeah,
tri-
I don't know, 'cause my studio, I would-
The radio.
But in your studio, you'd use the lower wattage.
yeah.
The radio popper that plugs into this one has no batteries. It plugs directly into the top and it gets power from the flash. So the advantage of using the radio popper that's built for this flash is you don't have to sit there and ever worry about your batteries going low. But that's like $500. That's crazy.
For one light.
Yeah, for one light, I'd almost rather get 2 of these or 2 of these. Okay, so with a flash. Flashes actually can zoom too. So there is, because when you attach it to the top of your camera, as you zoom, if you're zoomed in really close and if I'm standing way back here and I'm zooming into you, the lens can only see you. But if you have a flash on top of your camera, it's going to be trying to light up this whole room. So instead of lighting up the whole room, you can zoom the flash, and there's actually a zoom setting on the flash, and that's like going from like this to like this, and the light will actually narrow up and shoot farther because of that. This is like using that light sphere where you stick the light sphere on it, so you can see it's a lot softer, so the edges are much softer. This is using a snoot, and then this is using a snoot with a grid. Now a grid is those this is a grid like there, so it directs the light in one direction. So it forces the light not to go to the left and right, it forces it just to go to one direction. Okay, so then when you have either these lights or you have these lights, if you just took this and stuck it in front of your subject and took a picture, it's going to look bad because it's all your light coming from one direction, and it's a small light source. So to turn this into a big light source, if you threw an umbrella on it, your light source now, so you see how the front of these flashes are only this big, right? So if you take a flash that's this big and you hit an umbrella, your light source now becomes as big as the umbrella. So that's what I mean by big and small. I don't necessarily mean powerful when I say a big light source. I mean apparent size. According to your subject, however big the light source looks, that's how soft your shadows are going to be. And that's why the sun is really tiny. If you look up at the sun and hold up your fingers, it's super, super tiny. So your shadows on the floor are going to be very, very sharp. So if there were clouds, your light source is now the clouds. Everywhere you look, that's where your light source is coming from, because it hits the clouds become the umbrella, and now your shadow on the floor is very soft. So the bigger the light source appears to be from the subject, the softer the shadows will be. So these are different types of umbrellas. These are white shoot-through umbrellas, and this is where the light is actually going through the umbrella and then hitting the subject. These are probably the most popular because they get off the most flattering type of light. But you also get spill. Now spill is where light is going in a direction you don't want it to go. So this is actually not only shooting through the umbrella, but it's also bouncing back and hitting the walls. But then it will hit the wall and bounce off again and come back this direction. And that's kind of why these umbrellas give off probably the softest feeling, because you're hitting this, light's getting scattered everywhere, and then it eventually hits your subject, and then it ends up looking nice and soft, because not only are you getting the main light source directly from the flash going through the umbrella, but it's also hitting the walls. This one is a reflector umbrella, so on the inside of it, it's silver. So light So your subject would actually be over here, not over here. So it goes this way, it hits the entire umbrella, and then comes back. Now that's because it's silver. It's actually going to give a harsher light, but you can direct the light on this one because the light's not going to go through this umbrella. None of the light's going to go through it and hit the other side. See, because usually the other side of the silver ones are usually black. So in this example, they're using a silver one right here, and then they're using a shoot-through one on here. And what that'll do is that'll create a softer light on this side and then a harsher light on this side. This one, they're using a whole bunch of different light sources. So it looks like this one's kind of lighting up the background quite a bit. This one up here is lighting the back of them. This one's their fill light. This one's kind of just lighting up the whole scene. And then right here, you can see they have this like black piece of fabric on this, and that's preventing the light from hitting this window. So that's like, I forget what they call them, but it's just meant to like block the light. Okay, so soft boxes. You can buy really cheap ones too. This one is $16. This one's $31. This one's a kit with light stands. Oh, that actually has lights in it too. It's probably not strobes. They're probably constant lighting. So there's all different kinds of soft boxes. Some of them, and you need to make sure they attach to what your light source is. So if you're just using speed lights and flashes, then you need to buy the ones that attach to a flash like this. If they're meant for like your alien bee, you have to buy the ones that will attach to your alien bee. Let's see. Okay, and then with these, they have the ability to add a grid. And these will cause the light to go in one direction instead of all the way to the left, all the way to the right. So it's kind of like this one's going to give you your softest. This one would give you your next softest, and then that one would give you your harshest. So it's kind of like with different modifiers, you can create different light on your subject. This is an umbrella that has a backing on it, which prevents the light. So this is a shoot-through umbrella, but it will prevent light coming back the other direction. The advantage of this is it acts like a softbox. So it's softer than a softbox because you can see the angle of like light up here is going to go in this direction, and light here is going to go in this direction, and light here is going to go this direction. So it's still going to like hit the floor and kind of like bounce up, but none of the light will go backwards. And there's some lights that sometimes you want to be a strip. So I didn't want to light anything up in front of her, behind her, to the left and to the right. So they also make softboxes that are grids, and they're like really, really long and skinny. And that would be for the time to where you wanted to light up a strip. Or if you were going to rim light an entire subject standing, you could use this to give a rim light all the way from their head to their toes. This example is just a regular softbox over here, and then we have a light up here that's hitting above, and the final result was like this. So you can see this is from that one softbox, this was from the other softbox, and then all the other light is from that beauty dish above. What was this one? Okay. And then there was another thing I just found today. Where was it? This one. And I think this is the coolest thing, so I just ordered one today. This is called an Omega reflector. And what it is, it's a reflector with a hole in it. But with this particular reflector, it's removable. So it could be a regular reflector, or you can put that piece back in it, or you can make it white, you can make it shoot through, you can make it silver, you can make it black, you can make it gold. Now the advantage of this is, okay, so here's an example. There's one light source. So he has the light hitting this background and then coming straight down, and it gives almost like a ring light. A ring light is when, let me Google it so you can see it, where you shoot through a light. So see right here, your camera goes in the middle, and then the light is all around your camera, and it gives a completely even light left and right. Now the cool thing about this setup right here, this is what it looks like without the reflector. So just a standard picture right there. And then he has, so he's standing here. Let me try to zoom in a little bit. Oh, that's not going to work. Okay, so he has one light source up high and then angled down. So this light's coming this direction. It's hitting the reflector and it's hitting the back of her. So now, and this is the result of it. So she's getting a rim light and then it passes her body, hits the reflector, comes back, and then hits her face. So with one light source, you can get a picture that looks like it's two. And it's, I mean, I'm so excited to get it because it would be really nice to be able to get pictures like this with one light source, not having to walk around with multiple lights, multiple triggers, adjusting the lights and everything. There's another example. And then this is like if you have like bokeh in the background, like lights like far behind them. This is if you just took a picture with no reflector, and then this is when the same setup. And then this, you can also use it as a diffuser, so you could stick that thing over the hole, and then if you hung it over a window, you'd get a much more even light instead of harsh like this. And there's just different other examples that they're doing. So this is an example of, they have the white shoot-through material in here, and then they're shooting their light through it. And then that's giving this. So that's just another way to do it.
How much is something like that?
That one's $100. Which my triangle one was, I think, $100 also. So I mean, they're about the same for like the more name brand ones. And I mean, I'll get it and then I'll play with it and see. I mean, there's a lot of times I'll buy stuff and I hate it, and I end up like selling it or just getting rid of it, or it sits in my closet and I never use it. So I'll let you guys know how good this thing actually ends up being. And then the black one would give you this effect where if, see how when they took a picture of the car right here, you can see all the reflections in the window. Well, if someone's standing right here to block the reflections, it just helps when you need to block certain things. Or same thing with the certain lights hitting their face. You could just use it as a shade also.
Are you going to talk more about the light ring or the flash ring?
Yeah, I mean, I can. Okay, so there are a couple different kinds you can buy on this one. One just attaches to the speed light. So this is a standard ring flash where you attach your flash to the top of your camera and then it shoots, and then it's all chrome on the inside of this thing, so it's pushing the light down and then it lights up in a circle. And that will give the look of this. So it's so you see how there's like an even shadow around the whole subject. So it's a very unique look. It's not and it gives a ring in their eyes, which is kind of cool. One thing that's kind of cool about a ring light is if you just use it as your fill and you still have other lighting as your backlight, or you have a light on the left and a light on the right, the nice thing about using a ring light as your fill light is everything gets filled evenly. So you would be able to get an even fill light using a ring flash too. The tricky thing would be trying to figure out how to hook it up wirelessly, because that one that I showed you attaches directly to the flash, and then it's built to have your lens go right through it. And then they also have like LED ones. So I have like one like this too, where it's just like a big LED light, and then you can shoot through, and that's a lot bigger too. So if I'm doing video stuff, I would use that because it's constant lighting. Whereas if I'm using, and then even Alien Bees has their own. That's like a whole strobe built into a ring flash. And you're shooting through it and this whole entire thing lights up.
$3.99
For like a big one like that, yeah. Otherwise you would just use your flash, which you would already have, and then those ones that attach to your flash are like $39 or something. Okay, so did anyone get a chance to read through any of these PDFs?
I read through
I
it.
read some.
Okay, so you can see that they, I mean, didn't it give you a much clearer understanding of it's not intimidating, it's not scary. They kind of really walk you through everything step by step. So the second one is getting more into technique and ways to manipulate. I think this first one goes through a lot of the equipment. Oh, so on an umbrella. So this is a light stand. You obviously have to would get a light stand in this situation. So in order to angle your flash so it's angled down towards your subject, you have to get a umbrella adapter. So they sell umbrellas adapters, but they sell really, really cheap ones, and then they sell good ones. So the ones that are on like a ball head where it's just like a pressure, you know, it has a knob, and when you loosen it up, it can go in any direction. The problem with those is they will always loosen up once you get more weight on them. So if you were going to buy one of these, you need to find the ones with teeth. Otherwise, it will slip and get loose, and then your stuff will fall over. So these ones are anywhere from $15 to $25, depending on where you buy it. And this part right here attaches to the light stand, and then this part right here your flash would go to. And then the hole, the umbrella shaft would go right through the hole, and then you tighten it with this. And then these are angled. This is actually directional, so if you actually put it on backwards, your flash will be facing the top part of the umbrella. So you want to make sure that after you put it on, your flash head is facing the middle of your umbrella. So you can get an entire lighting kit. So this light stand right here, and the way that this guy describes about light stands is he's going for size when it's folded up, because he's talking about, think about if you're going on location, how much gear you're going to be walking with. So this one folds up really, really small, and it can also go really, really big. And if you're just using a speed light's really lightweight. And if you're using an umbrella, or you're using one of those 24-inch soft boxes, those are really lightweight too. So even though these stands are flimsy, they're strong enough to actually hold your stuff. And then what he did is he actually drilled a hole into the leg, like one here and one here, and then he attached like a camera strap to it, so he could throw it like over his shoulder. Because the whole goal was for, see right here, he drilled a hole here and he drilled a hole here. And he just,
had something like that on each leg, could you then attach weights to that part of it?
yeah.
Because that would be way better than you're always like throwing them over the top.
Yeah, so usually on these legs, when they open up, usually when you buy like weights, you usually just stick them over this part right here. So it's just putting down pressure on the, and then they sell light stand weight. So pretty much they're just bags that and nothing came up.
I like little sandbags.
Yeah.
So you could make your own.
Yeah, you can.
Another option is attach your camera bag.
Yeah, if you have a camera bag and it's got a lot of stuff in it, you can just throw it over that leg, and that'll be enough weight to really hold it down. So this is these are like the sandbags, and they just have zipper pouches, and you just stick like rocks in them, and then they fold over that leg, so that way it gives an even down pressure to hold the stand down. And you can find these pretty cheap. Or I've used even the little barbells, the little ones that you get from Walmart. They're just silver and they're like 15 pounds. And since those have two big weights on the side and then a skinny pole in the middle, I can just rest it against that leg and it stays there. It doesn't move and fall off.
15 pounds a good amount of weight to put on there.
Yeah, I mean, these things are probably only... I mean, you can go anywhere from like 10 to... it really depends on how much...
I just
Usually
wondered,
uses
would
5 to
it wouldn't
15.
break the stand. It's not
No,
that flimsy.
yeah.
Depends on how
But if it's
much
really
weight you have
windy,
on it,
it's still
and are you inside or outside?
Yeah.
I just didn't want to break the stand.
Yeah, you wouldn't break the stand,
No,
especially
but
since
you
it's
have-
right next to the floor. Like the part you're putting it over is like an inch away from the floor.
Well, and the weights he's doing are the ones that are like ankle weights.
Oh
they're
yeah,
like
so
a soft
so that's
weight,
another one we have too. It's like the ankle weights, which is just this same thing,
And they just Velcro.
and you just throw it over. Okay, so then, so with light stands,
I use them even for his exercise, so he'll always steal them out of my room. Never find him. But you can get them over at Ross for pretty cheap too.
okay, so there's a whole bunch of different kinds of light stands, and if you're just starting out, you know, don't feel like you can't just pick up one of these like tiny, like these small ones. Like, we don't want to intimidate you with all these expensive things. Like, especially if you don't know if lighting is something. Everyone I know that really gets into lighting, that's all they do. It's like lighting is the best friend to photography because you noticed before when we were down here, if you don't have light, you have to raise up your ISO. And every time I'm using light like this, I'm always at ISO 100. So none of my pictures turn out grainy. I'm able to really and then you get really creative because you can start positioning the lights everywhere. So you can start with something. Here's 2 for $22. And because there's a lot of people that are always going out to buy lighting stuff. So if you wanted to end up upgrading, you could turn around and sell this to another person in Photo Club. So that way you're getting almost all your money back. These ones are just really simple ones. They fold up pretty small, and they go up to 6 feet. These are not air cushioned, and what air cushioned means is, I think I actually have a video showing. I made it 2 years ago and forgot about it, and we just found it the other day. I was doing a review on a $40 light stand, and
all I'm going to do is loosen the clamp.
So that's
okay. If that was your strobe, it would have shattered the bulb.
So that's a regular light stand.
You don't realize how heavy you have equipment. Sometimes you have booms, softbox, beauty dish. They weigh a lot. So with an air cushion stand, it's actually hard to expand and contract the stand, but it's because the air cushioning in there. So I'm going to loosen this up and I'm going to pull this out. And that was the speed you can pull it out at. So now it's tight. All I'm going to do is, this is a working flash. All I'm going to do is loosen this up, like an assistant might, or someone that's trying to help you out might do. So it protects your equipment, and it works really good too if you have a lot of heavy equipment. It'll save stuff from crashing.
So this light stand is it was $38 on Amazon or something. So it was super cheap, and but the thing is, it's big. So when I first bought it, it's huge.
To be this big, probably actually one of the biggest light stands I have collapsed.
So the problem is you wouldn't be able to fit it in a bag. And all these knobs are plastic. So if you were going to chuck it in the back of your car, those knobs will eventually break. So the cheaper your equipment, it ends up, they start replacing metal pieces with plastic pieces. And if you're just using it inside of a studio, it's perfect. But if you're planning on traveling with it, I would probably not recommend something that has so many plastic pieces to it. And then when you get into things like this, like booms and stuff, you do have to put a weight on the other side because of how much light. And there's light kits on. So here's 2 with a carrying bag, with they're 10-foot stands, and it comes with the bags to put weights in, and it's $62. So there's different, and there's one without the bags for $45. So that makes them $25. You get 2 stands with a carrying case. So there's a whole bunch of different cheap ways to get, and then there's one right there that's 13 feet and it's air cushioned for $42 prime. Okay, so
go on KSL Sun Kiss. There's really cheap people. There's a bed.
Nothing.
There you go.
You gotta go into
It's
the
even
camera.
illegal now.
You go to the camera section.
Misspell it.
Let's get it.
I heard.
Right.
That's the way to find.
So how do I go to categories?
Then I'm on electronics.
No spelling. That's pretty funny.
And camera DSLR.
There's also a Facebook page called Utah Camera Gear for Sale, where photographers sell off their older equipment for decent prices. What's it called? Utah Camera Gear for Sale.
On Facebook, so just search for it.
Yes. I can't remember if it's private or closed. It's been a while.
I mean, if you can buy one off of Amazon Prime for $14.50, you're probably not going to really find. And if it's used, they might have already broke it. Like, it might be confusing at why they're selling it if it was only $14. But if you find them, grab them. It's always good to have extra stands, especially different sizes. Like that one that I was showing you in that video. The smallest it can go, my light is like this high off the floor. So if you're shooting a baby, or you're trying to get like a subject that's low, it's not gonna. I mean, you can't get it that low. So I have some light stands that are like I can put like all the way to the floor. Okay, so then.
So they had a kit on this site that you put up. Was that a decent kit or not?
On this in this PDF,
Yeah.
I'd have to look at it.
I just bought a kit off of Amazon that had the umbrella and the stand and this bracket thing.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't very expensive, and it's been kind of fun.
Any starter kit when you're learning is fine. I think when you want to look at it is like if you've got your more expensive equipment, you're not going to want to mount on something cheap and crappy because you're risking that. Also think of the situations that you're shooting in. If you're going to be outside or you're going to be at a wedding or somewhere where there's going to be a lot of people running around, they might knock over your stands or whatever you want. Eventually you're going to want the nicer stuff. You will, but
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out.
to try it out,
Yeah. Until some people
You know
get to
what?
that point, like.
I got a $20 kit with the stand and the umbrella bracket, with the an umbrella and the bracket, and I still have it. I still play with it. I still use it for things. I don't know that I would use it. It would depend. Like I wouldn't.
But if you
It's
have your
pretty
crappier
flimsy.
stuff, would you take that out? Like if you're like, oh, I don't want to ruin my good stuff, then you take that stuff out to the
Yeah, sometimes like like if you're gonna do something
muddy or
then you take that stuff out and So I mean, there's definitely a place for it, but if you're learning on it, go for it. Go for it. I got a cheap trigger that Rich and I both have the same one, and I still use
I
it.
still use it. It's a good little.
It is a good little
Do you
trigger.
know
It was
what
cheap,
name
it was
brand that
$20.
was?
Yeah, well, newer or Cowboy Studio. Also, if the
Great
stands
to
seem a
learn on,
little
though.
pricey, even
Great
at
to learn on.
$15, I saw there were 2 stands for $22. That's $11 a piece. Just talk to someone in the phone. Hey, what's going on? It's $11. But yeah, right there. Except the one that I bought only had one receiver, and that one has 2.
Yeah, see, mine just had one too.
Yeah.
But geez, right there, 20.
Okay, so for $20, you would stick.
Yeah, I spent $20 on mine, and it only had one receiver.
So you would stick a this on your camera, and then you would put a flash on this one and a flash on this one, and then that would be a 2-light setup. And you could start off by going to eBay and getting. The thing is, I bought ones like this. I mean, Richard probably had better luck than I did, but I bought some of these, and I was always having problems with them. So I don't know if it was just a brand, or if it was the batteries, or if it was
Just a lemon.
just, it could have been a bad one, or, I think mine looked more like this, though. Or do yours look like this?
Yeah, mine looked like that too.
See, I think I got these ones, and they were, we always had problems with them going off.
This
See,
might
that's because
Yeah, but we still got some good
sprung
pictures
for the
out of it.
nicer
'Cause they
ones,
wouldn't
the
go off, and
$32
then
ones.
the girls
I
would
was
just
cheating
use
on
it.
the $20 ones.
So
and
we're
they were
like,
actually
oh, well,
better.
that's cool too.
What? Wait, what?
Oh, I was making a joke.
Oh,
So you sprung for the nicer ones. So what'd you do with them? Did you sell them?
I think.
I think we still have a bunch of them. They just sit there. Okay, so the disadvantage of using these, though, is you cannot control the power of the flash from these. These are just triggers. They will only set off the light. So if you need to make your light brighter or darker, you will have to walk over to your light, go up to your flash, and adjust the setting. Which is fine beginning, because if you are learning, then that would force you to start learning how to use your flash. It forces you to, really figure out what settings are good. But if you're more, especially when you're learning, it's $20. It's not that big of a deal. But when you're in a professional setup and you're getting paid for it, it's a lot easier to just adjust it right from your camera. So if you go to eBay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
It might sound silly, but how would I know that it would fit my camera? I mean, that one said it would, but... Will there be incidents where I
Usually
find
you
that
just
it
search
would
for
fit?
like wireless trigger and then Canon or wireless trigger Nikon, and then they'll come
It'll
up.
say.
Yeah.
Okay. I just don't want to end up with the wrong one.
And before you buy anything, feel free to email us. Like I'll take a look at it, see if it's something I bought before. If it wasn't good, I'll let you know. If it's not compatible, make sure you just let me know what camera you're sticking it onto.
I just got those Yagano ones, those cheap ones that were down there, and they've been working just fine.
These ones right here? Oh, cool.
Yeah. Except for Canon.
And then another issue is distance. So with a brand like Radio Popper, you get like a full 1,600 feet. These will probably go like 20 to 50 feet. So if you're in a situation where you're, just in a small area, that's fine. But if you're in a culture hall doing a reception and you have one light all the way on one side and one light all the way on the other side, you're going to have spotty coverage with that.
If we did one at a skate park, we wouldn't have been able to do it without.
Oh, yeah, we were way far from the... Yeah, so we were doing a skating event, and our light was, 300-400 feet away, and we had, like, zoom lenses. So we had, like, a light over here, light over there, we had a light on our camera, and they would all trigger every single time. The only time they don't trigger is if you're trying to take a picture too fast and the light hasn't charged up the flash, and that would be your battery issue.
Me.
So on eBay, if you search for YN and then flash, you can find all different kinds of... So there's that 600 YN flash. There's like a 571. These ones don't have the newer wireless technology built into them. They just changed all their wireless stuff. So this one still does have a wireless thing built into it, but it's using kind of those cheaper versions, kind of like those $20 ones off of... So the disadvantage of using this one is now you're locking yourself into using their cheaper triggers, where those ones that are 150 that I am getting for 100, those have the radio wave ones that are, you'll be able to get very far distance, and you can adjust all the power on them. On these ones, they're just triggering the light. You can't adjust how bright the light is. With the $100 ones that I'm getting, you can adjust the power of all your lights right from the flash on top of your camera. And you can do groups, so you can say, I want my two back ones to be dim, I want the one on the left to be bright, and I want the...
Are those ones right underneath it adjustable? The ones that are a little bit more, 120 something?
No.
Oh, and they're not name brand.
Yeah, these would not work with Radio Popper. So these are like the cheaper... It would work with the Nano Radio Popper, but it wouldn't work with like the ones where you can adjust the power. So if you're going to go with the cheaper name brand flash and you want the ability to adjust the power from your camera, then you would want to go with that $100 light, because then it's using the newer technology. It's a really bright flash. You can use one on your camera as the trigger, and you could bounce it off the ceiling, or you could tell it to turn off. You could use another one. So with that one of them has to be your transmitter, and then the other ones would be a receiver. So a 2-light setup, you would actually have one on your flash, or one on your camera, and then one off to the side. You could still use the one on your camera, but you would have to use it to either bounce the light or be just the fill. So if you angled it directly towards your subject, you would set that one to be really low power, and then you would set like the one over to the right with an umbrella would be your higher power one, which would be your main key light. If you wanted to go with long-term solution, then I would only buy Canon or Nikon branded flashes, and then wait until you have the money and then get the actual radio popper triggers, because eventually you might end up getting those alien bees, and that way your triggers work with the alien bees. You could adjust the power of the alien bees. But if you just don't have the money and you want to get into lighting, feel free to hop on here and look for the cheapest flash you can buy.
What about the ability of the flashes to act as slaves? Is there something that won't? Or?
Most of these knockoff, these brands have, and if you read it, it'll say on there whether, and that's just called slave, like optical slave. So a lot of these have, supports wireless slave. So these come off, let's see. So S1 and S2 pre-flash cancellation mode. Okay, so if the flash on the back of it says S1 or S2, that means that you can trigger those with light. So that means you could have one light on top of your camera, and then it wirelessly talks to the other light just by, when it sees the light go off, it'll trigger itself. The disadvantage is, if you stuck that inside of a softbox, sometimes you can't get it to see the light. Or if it's behind a wall and you wanted to light up something completely where it's hidden, it won't ever be able to see that.
Which is why you like the radio wave ones.
Right, because once you get into... there's been a lot of situations to where I'm not even close to the light, and you can't see it at all. And if you're in a cultural hall doing a reception for someone, and you have a light in one corner, and I usually shoot them to the ceiling, and another... there's no way that those lights are going to see each other.
So with those ones that have the radio, do you have to have all of that brand?
Or you could buy the Canon one.
Or could you use a Nikon or Canon to set that one off with radio?
You could use
radio transmission.
The $100 ones to trigger the initial ones, and then set your other flashes to look for light.
So your Nikon flash to
slave. So you can certainly start mixing a whole bunch of different kinds of light sources, and then set the ones that don't have the wireless communication into a slave mode. Or you could buy I think they do sell a trigger that is meant for this. So if you already have a couple flashes and you wanted to buy this setup, I think they do sell just a receiver, which then would attach the... let me see if they... But I do know that they sell flashes on here that are... I've seen them as low as like $39 or something.
They're looking for 39, just at the bottom. Can be faster.
You're going too fast, I can't even see it.
Yeah, so that's a 460. So, okay, so then also there's another thing called ETTL. Now, everything we're doing is manual. We're always using manual flash. We're setting the power of the flash. We're setting all of our settings. If you want a flash that you can stick on top of your camera, here's another little diffuser you can buy. Those are called like Stofens. They're like $5 to $10, and they just stick on the end of the flash and just help it diffuse it quite a bit. They're not nearly as good as those Gary Fong ones that are more like that Tupperware thing, but they're better than just bare light. So this one, there's no auto mode. So if the disadvantage of buying this light is it's always going to be manual. You have to be in manual. This has to be in manual. If you ever want to take these lights that you buy, stick them on your camera, stick your camera in P mode, and just let the flash do its work, then that $100 one that I was talking about has ETTL built into it. Now, it also has high-speed sync. So if you were shooting, we'll get into high-speed sync later, but it has all the advantages of the Canon $500 flash built into that $100 flash. I wanted to see if there was the YN600 EXRT trigger. So this is the trigger that you could optionally buy for the top of your camera if you didn't want to waste a flash on top of your camera, but it's almost as much as the actual flash. But I was trying to see if they had one that... Oh no, not receiver. I wanted to see if they just sold a receiver. I'll have to look into that and then update you on. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look it up. Okay. Okay, now this example right here is they're doing it by light. So one person triggered their light and everyone's flash went off. So it is sometimes really convenient to do the light triggering. The disadvantage is sometimes it doesn't see it, sometimes it doesn't go off, and other people are also triggering your lights. This one's using like wireless, so like the either Pocket Wizard or Radio Popper are like the standards when it comes to like reliability and like really, really far distances. So if you haven't read this yet, you really do want to read it because it really goes through a lot of the stuff that we're just kind of skipping over. Last year we did a lighting stuff and we went through all of Lighting 101 and Lighting 102, and I think it was like a 3 or 4 month course. So it's just too much stuff to go over in 4 classes. So I'm skipping over a lot of it. But if you read through it, it's literally what we did last year. And if you end up getting a setup, you know, if you end up buying a setup, like we can do photo meetups, you would bring your equipment and actually start using it more and more. And literally with just an umbrella and a speed light that you can trigger wirelessly, you can do so much with just that. You don't really have to get all this fancy stuff. You can, just with even the little foam boards, the black foam boards from Walmart can be used to block light. There's a lot of DIY stuff to where you just spend a little bit of money on your kit to trigger your light. Like the $20 trigger, you know, maybe 2, obviously 2 lights are way better than 1, especially if you're, because almost all those wedding shots were at least 2 lights. You had one in the front, one in the back. And even these knockoff brands, they work fine. When it comes to batteries, flashes will eat your batteries. So we always end up getting these Inteloops, and they are rechargeable batteries. So here's like a, what is that, for a 12 pack for $32. And you can just keep researching. Oh, there's a $24 one. And then you can buy these like kits that have the charger built into them. I mean, it comes with them. It comes with some AAAs, and then it comes with AA's. I would buy the amount of batteries so you have a spare for each flash. So if you have 2 flashes, that would be 4 inside each flash and then 8 spares. So I would buy a minimum of 16 batteries for 2 flashes. Just because you might end up running out. And if your trigger has a battery, don't forget about those too. Because you don't want to be on a location doing something and your batteries die. And the advantage of using the advantage of these Inteloop ones is you charge them and then you leave them in your bag. It takes them like 2 or 3 years to die. They have like an 80% charge after 2 years. So you charge them and you leave them in your bag. You never have to worry about them. Whereas so many other battery stuff you have to like charge right before you use it. These ones I never worry about it. I charge them as soon as they're dead, and then I throw them back in my camera bag, and then at the beginning of usually every photo shoot, I'll just swap out all the batteries just so I don't have to worry about it. Okay.
You can charge them like 1,500 times, so
yeah.
Swap them out. You'll probably die before you charge them to a low amount of times.
Especially if you have enough. Like if you have that many like spares and stuff, and they sell them at Costco, and you can find deals on Amazon. So you really just want to keep looking, and it's the Inteloop brand. You wouldn't want to get like another brand. You would just get the Inteloop ones. Okay, so see, these are all examples of using. So right here he's using two lights. One is the fill light and one is the main light. This one is bouncing off of walls and ceilings. So instead of even trying to walk around with lights facing the subject, you can take your light even on top of your camera and just shoot it towards the ceiling. And that's like a much better way too than having to worry about any of the stuff. Even if you just got the flash, stuck it on top of your camera and bounced off the ceiling. So no matter what, you want to get a flash that is movable, like the head can like move.
batteries, do you find they get weaker and cold? Or those good ground that last cold?
I think all batteries get a little weaker and cold, but oh, that's an alarm.
I leave those Eneloops in my car. Yeah. They have this, they pretty much guarantee that if you leave them for 5 years, they'll still have a 70% charge. So, pretty sure a little bit of cold's not really going to affect it. I've never noticed a difference with mine. In fact, I probably have about 100 of them, and that's because we keep putting them in all our remotes. So, we just keep buying more.
I mean, every time I need a battery, I use an Eneloop. When I see them at the store, like a pack of batteries, to me that's like literally throwing away everybody, because as soon as they're dead, they're just in the trash. Whereas I would rather take the $30 instead of buying a 40 pack, buy a 30 pack or a 20 pack, and then now you have these batteries that'll last you like 10 years. And they usually last longer in flashes than regular batteries. They're meant for digital devices that are sucking a lot of power. So there's an example of one of those diffusers that you can just stick on top. And then they sell really cheap ones too. So so the Gary Fong one I think is like $100, but you can buy some like knockoff ones that are $10, or you can go buy a Tupperware and stick it on it and rubber band it to your thing. So I mean, there's so much stuff you can just make from home from really cheap items. So and if it's not something you know if you're going to get into professional and you're just doing it for free, then yeah, buy all the cheap knockoff stuff. I mean, there is a reason why some of the stuff costs more, because it's just built better. It's it's going to last longer. But if you're just playing around with this stuff at home with your kids and stuff, then this is a great way to kind of throw together a kit. Hard light. So this is just using a bare light. There's no diffuser. So he's just using the speed light with no umbrella, no softbox, and that's why it's creating such a hard shadow. Because the light source is very tiny. It's a very small light source. And they explain all that stuff through here. That's that ring flash one. And then you can buy soft boxes for speed lights that are just like little foldable ones. We've all purchased a bunch of these things, and you never end up using them. The one that we found works the best is it's almost like the perfect size is that 24-inch softbox for speed lights. So it's this one. It's like $30, and it's foldable. The whole thing can fold up and fit in like a little pouch. I leave them set up, but they're small enough to throw in your car. You can stick a speed line in it. The wind goes right around them. They're light enough to where you really don't need weights, especially if you get a big enough tripod or light stand. So that $40 air cushion one that I was showing you guys, it's plenty big enough. It has a wide enough stance to where you probably wouldn't even need weights or anything like that. Okay, this is doing a technique called, there's not really a name. So really what you're doing is, remember how when we were doing the water drop setup, the light itself was freezing the subject. But if you kept your shutter speed open longer, it would have started absorbing the light coming from the rest of the room. So what they're doing in this situation is you take a picture, it freezes the subject that got hit by your light, and then for the rest of the shutter, so let's say you were doing a full second, you can twist your camera and it blurs everything else except for the subject. Because the subject was frozen by the light from the flash. And then and it looks really cool when you have like, city lights and you can like zoom. You can take a picture of someone and then slowly zoom your lens, and it will make all those lights in the background like zoom. Do you know what that's called, Richard?
Richard.
Oh, wait a second.
You did a lot of those at the stars.
See, like this right here.
Lens, that makes the stars look shiny or shooting.
So there's like one like that, and see, like there's a long exposure with the car driving, But like these ones right here is when, see how he looks still but everything else looks blurry? It's because the flash lit him up, properly exposed him, and then as the shutter was open, it started absorbing all the light. And since you're moving around, it just looks like... So it's kind of a cool effect, especially like on a dance floor if it's really low lighting and you're doing a reception and it's really dark and you can flash them. They're going to look very flashy, but if you end up leaving the shutter open just a little bit longer to absorb it, that ghosting look actually ends up looking pretty cool in the photo.
So, how come he's not in there? I mean, he was still in the picture. Did he move out of the picture for the rest of the blurring?
No, he is still in there. So if you actually look around him, you'll see ghosting images of him. But he's so much brighter. There's not really anything that is lighting him up other than your flash. So because your flash only hit him for 1/10,000th of a second, that's what got recorded to the camera. But with the lights, with your flash off, there wasn't really a lot of light hitting him in the room. So because he was black...
He's probably underexposed normally.
Oh yeah, if you would have turned off your flash, the only thing you would have seen are like spotlights from the rest of the room and everything.
Yeah, okay.
So, I really can't emphasize this enough. You guys really will want to read through all this stuff because we just won't have enough time to go through it all. And literally everything and this was a time when after I read it, this is when like my light bulb finally turned on and everything started making sense. If any of this shutter speed and aperture is still confusing at all, as soon as you understand when you're adding light into the subject and they talk about, like, if you want your light brighter, like your flash, if you raise your aperture, you're opening up the iris opening on the front of your lens to let in more of that light. Okay, so opening up your f-stop will make your light source brighter. But increasing your shutter speed won't affect your flash at all because the flash is 1/10,000th of a second. So going from 200ths of a second to 1 second, it's not absorbing any more of that light from your flash because the flash was on for such a short amount of time. Your camera already absorbed it. The only thing doing a longer shutter speed is going to do is start absorbing more of your natural light that's already in the area. So if you're mixing light, if you're adding light to the light that's already, like during a sunset, then that's when shutter speed starts coming into play, not your aperture. So it goes through all of that stuff on how to mix light. A lot of the stuff that we do when we're doing photo shoots, when we're in here doing photo shoots, we're not using any ambient light. So we're not mixing light at all. We're creating, if we shut off all of our lights and took a picture with the same settings, our picture is going to be black. So we're literally lighting up our entire scene. And the thing that's nice about that is you can turn on one flash at a time and adjust it until you like it, and then turn that flash off. Go to your next light, turn that one on, so you can really see what each light is doing to your scene. So you could turn on one light, adjust it until it's perfect, add a modifier, add an umbrella, get it so it's nice, and then look at what's wrong with the picture. Okay, it's too dark on this side. Now you shut off that light, you add another light, and you just try to fill those shadows, and then you can turn them both on to see how the two lights combined takes the picture. So it's actually pretty easy. It's like light paint. It's like painting with light, where it's kind of like cooking, where you look at the picture and if it needs more light, you just add a little bit more light, like salt, you know. So this is using all natural light over here. So this whole light over here is from the sun, and then over here is just his fill. So it's a one light setup. And he's just doing, so the sun's doing all the main lighting of the ocean, the mountain and everything, and then he just has a light from the back, because otherwise that would be really dark. Same thing with this. This would be really, really dark if he didn't use a fill light. And these are all one light setups right here. And this one's just a flash sitting on the floor, facing up. And this one's just using like a snoot. Okay, so now gels. If you're trying to mix your light with fluorescent light actually gives off like a green hue. So you actually need to color your light to match the light that's in the room. If you're trying to mix light with incandescent bulbs, like the regular orange looking bulbs, those ones are like the orange. So because your flash is very, very white. So if you were in a room with a lot of incandescent bulbs and you took a picture, your subject would actually look really blue compared to the rest of the room. So you would then stick one of these gels on your flash to make your flash the same color temperature as the lights that are also in the room.
There's a setting on your camera that does that too. Does that change the flash, or does it?
It wouldn't change the flash. It would only change what the other lights end up looking like in your camera. So the problem is, if you changed the incandescent lights to look white, what that's doing is it's cooling down your picture. It's taking orange and adding more of the cool color to it, which would then take your flash and make it more blue. Right. So the only way to fix a flash is to use gels. And these, you can buy these gel kits that have like 30 different gels in them. And I usually just stick tape on the sides, or you can stick rubber bands on them, or they even make kits that like go right over the... And if you're going to shoot into an umbrella, you don't have to gel the entire umbrella. You just have to gel right over the flash where the light source is coming out of. Because then if yellow light hits the umbrella, yellow light is going to come through the umbrella. And those are cheap too. And see, so he added Velcro, so that way you kind of always have them with you. And then you just pull them off and then Velcro them on. So that's like a really convenient way. Because a lot of times when you need a gel, you don't have them with you. So you kind of want to find a way to like keep it in your kit and a way to attach it when you're gone.
So how much does your camera kit weigh when you take it?
We use...
With Shauna's weights.
No. Well, most of the time we don't use weights because it's not really windy. I only and because I'm not using umbrellas, the wind will just go right past them. So I really we actually don't use the weights unless I'm bringing like my alien bees out, and then I have to have a battery pack. Like when I did that guy running that was like on the track field, and I had 2 lights. That was using like a battery pack, and I had extension cords running everywhere. But a normal like family photo shoot, I have 2 light stands that are pretty lightweight, and they're collapsible and they connect together. So the light stands that I actually use, they all connect together, which makes it really easy for traveling. So they are they're like these ones. And when they fold up, I don't know why they don't show a picture of it. They all lock together. Let me see if there's a... See, like that right there. So they snap together, and then you could grab this whole thing, and then I even have a bag for it. You can stick them in the bag. So that makes it a lot easier to like travel with your stuff. But these are like $100 a piece. But over the time of buying 500 different kinds of light stands, these are the ones I ended up with because they're all air cushioned. They travel up very small. They're all metal. They can take a beating and collapse. They're really small. And I have 2 different sizes. I have one set that's smaller and another set that's bigger. And I have 4 of each. So I think it's 10 now. So we'll start. I'll try to... All the stuff that we went to today, like all this reflector stuff, that's pretty much all we'll go over the reflector stuff. So... and that's really for when you're don't forget, so a reflector not only can reflect the sun, you can also use it if you have 1 light and you want to fill. So if you don't have enough money to buy a 2 light setup, you can use a light and a reflector and but then you kind of need someone to hold it. So it's kind of tricky. So if you're just playing with your kid and your kid's sitting there on the floor and you have your light over here with an umbrella, and then your kid sitting on the floor, you could just take your reflector and just kind of rest it against the couch and still come out with these amazing looking photos with a really small setup, an expensive setup. So I'll try to send an email to you guys with like a list of the cheapest kit possible, just so you guys can kind of see, and I'll put together a couple different kits, one with those $100 flashes, one with $39 flashes and cheap light stands and stuff like that. So if you are interested in getting into this, you can buy a really inexpensive kit that, and then if you did upgrade, don't forget you can always resell your stuff because everyone's looking to always like get into it, and they'll buy your old stuff. So that's pretty much it for today. So if you haven't read that Lighting 101, please read it.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Thanks.
One knee. Gotta go in bed.
Bye guys.